kind of models that we train reps on. So let's say that we get on the social network and the topic is building a sales model for your country or whatever. So now any country managers can dial in, or any field representatives or whoever could link in and then ask questions. And we can then share those models and those PowerPoints globally versus it just impacting that one country where the fellow is. Now we're on kind of a global scale that we can kind of spread this around. So, so those are just a couple ideas that I had, and I really wanted, this is kind of the formal part, but I really wanted to make sure I give you guys plenty of time that any Q&A that you may have or any questions, and I'd be more than happy to kind of answer whatever I can. So.
I got one. Hi Neil, I'm Carl Hoffman, the CEO.
Hey Carl.
First of all, congratulations. Obviously you're a strong communicator, and this is a very effective message, and it's visually appealing, and I think you have a good story to tell, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
And it's obvious that you put a lot of energy into the brief time you spent with us, and we benefited from it. I'm delighted if you did too, but it's clear that we did. I want to also acknowledge what I think this represents, which is your curiosity about how things work outside, as you say, the world of Pfizer. And Pfizer's a big world.
Right.
It's a big world that will clearly consume you and 100% of your time and energy if you let it.
Right.
And I really want to acknowledge the fact that you and your fellow global health fellows went out and tried to broaden your horizons even further. So I want to thank you for that. My question is, so there are lots of different NGO partners.
Mm-hmm.
I don't actually know the process on the Pfizer side, how much choice you have in terms of where you go or even who you'd like to partner with. But share us the buzz a little bit. Where do the Pfizer fellows really want to work? What's
Right.
the NGO partner that they really like working with, and why? Or what are the people? What are some of the stories you've heard from your fellow fellows about what have been the standout NGOs that they've worked with and why?
It's interesting. I get a lot of calls when people are applying to be a part of the program. So it's actually a lengthy process. I think it's 3 years now that you have to be with Pfizer. It used to be 5 years. But 3 years you have to be with a company and have a solid track record. So these are fellows that come either from research and development. These are the scientists that develop the drugs that come to market through Pfizer, or somebody that comes from a sales background or a marketing background. So I get a lot of calls from different fellows, and I'm trying to get a better understanding how to write the application, how to be a part of the program. And for me, I think the fellows are really looking for an organization that fits their skill set. So there are a lot of different partners. I think this year we have 11, so we've scaled that down a good bit, so we can really dig deeper into strategic partnerships. And so so for one organization, for PSI for instance, you probably have seen a lot of people come from a sales background or a marketing background because of the kind of overlap between the private sector approaches and it being a social marketing organization. So for PSI, I'm actually on the review board with the different organizations. So the entrepreneurial focus, I review the applications that came in this year. And from the talk that was on the call, it was PSI is seen in a very good light at Pfizer. And fellows, there's a lot. We have Boston University reviews us every time a fellow comes back. We go through a long review process on the partner, the actual fellow, because that goes through our review at the end of the year. And PSI really stacks above a lot of the other NGOs, and I think it's a lot of it because there are a lot of similar approaches that PSI takes to the private sector, such as Pfizer. Where I've heard other organizations, the scope of work isn't defined well. I think that's key for success, is that you have to have a very well-defined scope of work. And I think autonomy, it's having some autonomy is good, but I think this is a whole new element for people coming from the private sector. A lot of these people have had experience doing maybe a couple international trips, doing some consulting, but overall their focus has been on revenue streams and other things. So it's scope of work is important, because there's most Pfizer people, as I've heard PSI is the same way, very much A-type personalities, and we like to know what's expected of us, and we want to make sure that we go well above and beyond what's expected from us. So set that bar high, but also the scope of work shouldn't be so out there that, as you know, it takes time to have sustainable impact. And so having a very strong scope of work, I think, is key. And then the type of fellowships that are out there, I think, are important. I think this year with PSI, it's going to be entrepreneurial focus in terms of the type of people that come and see. You probably will have people more with a marketing or sales background that come in. So did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Matt?
Talking about the sustainability part of it, and what we've talked about and with others at Pfizer, and I think the reason that they've changed the format is to try to have a longer term impact and an impact that's outside of just the platform that the fellows are. Can you talk about how, with the new structure, and you've had a chance to read what we're looking for, one of the things we proposed is at the end, the 3 fellows would do a regional sales training. Is that something that has happened before, and maybe your thoughts on how we can make sure that the lessons learned within the platform are shared more on a global basis within PSI?
That's a great question. In fact, I'm glad to hear that that is going to be something that is taking place, because that was something that was challenging when leaving, is having this this new sales model that we created in that country. And when I got back, literally I landed, and the next morning my manager was meeting with me with all the new stuff that I had to implement back at Pfizer. I had no idea that all this new data and things that were coming in, I didn't have time to even debrief in certain situations. So it was challenging leaving.